Rahim. Uh, this specific part of the discussion will focus on knowing your rights. As with the previous talks, we've seen how law enforcement leverages the lack of knowledge within the community to fulfill a specific agenda by entrapping young Muslims or to just gather bogus intel for whatever purpose that they need. So the common issue that we see within the community is the most common is the knock on the door by the FBI or some other law enforcement agency. And every Muslim, and we know for a fact, we could sit there and reflect, knows, whether it be yourself or knows somebody that's actually been visited by the FBI or some other law enforcement agencies regarding on the issue of terrorism. The other issue that we see within the community is the pressure that is being pushed against the on the Masjids and Islamic groups. Now, if we look at the way it's being run, the way the American intelligence community and the law enforcement, spearheaded by the FBI, is approaching the Muslim, it almost mimics what we see in the Muslim world. I remember the first time I went to Hajj. We stopped over in Egypt, and it was time for Salat al-Isha. And, obviously we were going through the plane. By the time we come out, it was around 10 o'clock. The Imam of the Masjid that was a block away, he knew we were making one of the biggest sacrifices a Muslim can do. We're making Hajj. And he was thrilled to see us. And like a paranoid criminal, he looked around. He goes, "Guys, you want to do Salat at the Masjid? Come, it'll be my honor." We're all confused. Like, why is this guy all suspicious about going to the Masjid? Because in Egypt, the government forces the Masjid to be closed down after Salat al-Isha. This is a rule by the intelligence apparatus. This is the way the masjids are run overseas. They're run by governments who are governed by the intelligence community, where they leverage fear as a tactic. So the American law enforcement community, they know this, and they apply the same type of pressure, the same type of techniques to scare Muslims to almost reflect, oh, this is how it is back home. So I need to comply no matter if you're not guilty 99% of the time. No matter what, if the moment some guy comes knocking at your door, your masjid, they start to fear. And this is exactly, exactly what's going on. It's working to their advantage. A couple years ago, a masjid in Springfield, we were attending the event at the masjid, and some of the board members came out with a piece of paper, and they were writing out everybody's name. We were all confused. Why is this going on? And they admitted it. Like, oh yeah, we're giving the names to the FBI. So we have masjids out here that are pretty much keeping rosters of Muslims attending their masjid and handing it over to the FBI. And the question would be, imagine if the FBI came demanding this on a synagogue or a church or a temple. How would the management of these religious establishments accept that? For some reason, in our community, that's accepted norm that people would comply by law enforcement and spirited by the FBI to grab names of Muslims that are going to go pray, just for the FBI keep tab on who's going to the masjid. We have imams that are being pressured because of their immigration status. They know how to leverage that. Legal issues. And we know from the leaks by Edward Snowden that the GCHQ, the NSA's equivalent in UK, was using porn addiction by imams as a way to leverage them. So we have no idea how they leverage the leadership of the Muslim community. And I quote the leadership. So there's multiple ways for them to put their foot in the door and actually put the pressure within the community. Now, to recap from the other previous talk, we know that people are being flagged, are being put on terror watch lists because they attend a specific masjid. What they talk about in social media. And social media is becoming a very effective way for the law enforcement community to look at Muslims and how they feel about issues that happen, especially overseas. Even the least practicing Muslim, when he sees what's happening on the grounds of Syria and occupied Palestine, they'll, of course, they get angry. They'll put a rant. They'll sit there, write a status on him, and they look at this as being extremist. We have, the other odd one is you happen to know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody that the FBI is monitoring, and voila, you end up on this terror watch list. So the using that watch list is, it works to their advantage, because what happens is the moment you get pulled over by the police or you get, come back into the country after a travel overseas, they put this pressure on you to start complying with law enforcement, even though you did nothing. At the end of the day, it's a numbers game. I mean, we knew from a leak within the Justice Department that somebody actually released a whole set of documents pertaining to how the U.S. government leverages the terror watch list. And it came out that after the shoe bomber incident, the issue for law enforcement and the intelligence community, add as much people on the list as you can to make it as we're doing an effective job. So we've seen numbers go skyrocket in a ridiculous amount. You have people that are on the list that don't even practice. We have non-Muslims. We have Muslims that are Muslim by name that don't practice, and they end up on the terror watch list. So anybody's open to be scrutinized on this list. So let's talk about the first issue about knowing your rights, the knock on your door. This is the most common approach by the FBI. When they want to single out a Muslim or a family, what they do is they just randomly go to your house and till you open the door. They go there to fish around, to look at who's in the house and who lives there, trying to grab bio data from the first glance, and eventually trying to question you, figure out your feelings about the U.S. government, its foreign policies, who what you practice on. The list goes on. Obviously, the questions you get differ from people to people, but there's some questions that kind of are ridiculous. They're the FBI. Our taxpayer goes, our money gets taken from our paycheck, goes to an agent that's supposed to investigate. Yet they ask them the most ridiculous questions that any kid off the street could just sit there and watch and figure this out. So when the FBI or any other law enforcement agency, when they decide to come to your house and they knock on your door, the very first thing you have to remember is, unless they have a search warrant or they have a warrant for your arrest, they have no legal reasons to be interacting with you going into your house. So never, ever, and I stress ever, allow you to ever talk to any law enforcement agencies without a lawyer being present. Remember, these law enforcement can lie. They can manipulate, they can make up a fake story to talk about why they are here to interact with you. One of the most common things, if you actually talk to people that have been encountered by the FBI, they come out very friendly, smiling. Hey, we're here just to, make sure you guys we're in the community, blah, blah, blah. You invite them to your house, the tone changes 180. So, Mohammed, what do you think about, America's intervention in Syria? What do you think about America's support for Israel? It goes from this to actual questions to figure out your, what you think. The mistake that person made was letting them into their house to begin with and talking to them. So the moment they knock on your door, the first thing you should immediately ask is, they're going to ask you, hey, we want to talk to you. Like, okay, can I have a business card? Why? I'll let my lawyer, I'm not going to talk to you without my lawyers being present. Or my attorney will contact you. This simple statement is enough for these guys to back off. There was a Somali blogger who was being monitored by the Department of Defense. Eventually, his information was given to probably a fusion center, or eventually to the FBI that came and paid him a visit. The moment he said, he knocked on his door, and he didn't even have an attorney, and he stressed out, hey, I will, my attorneys will contact you. That was it. They never heard from these guys again. they're always concerned about a individual who knows the framework that they're abide by. So never talk to law enforcement, FBI, without an attorney. I mean, you could say, "Hey, I have nothing to hide. I have nothing, nothing. I have nothing to say that's going to scrutinize." But you'd be surprised. Anything you say will be used against you. We all know this. We all watch Cops. Anything you say, again, they could be misinterpreted. You can misinterpret, and guess what? That could be used against you. I mean, even in Guantanamo, we have reports of people that are there for life, still locked up because of bad intelligence. How many people are locked up, in the U.S. justice system because of bad intelligence, bad information? So never, ever talk to any law enforcement without a lawyer, without an attorney being present. So again, the highlight: the moment you ask for attorney, the bulk of the time they'll stop harassing you. And I stress, they are here to harass you. So the moment they come to your, when you should tell them not to, that you don't want to talk to them unless your attorney's present, don't do it when you're inside your house. The moment they knock, you come out, close your back door. Don't even let them look around, fish around. Because all that data, anything they interpret, they use for whatever they want. And bluntly ask them, if they want to come in, do you have a search warrant? And the bulk of the time, the answer is going to be no, there's no search warrant. If there is a search warrant, you specifically ask for that search warrant because legally you're allowed to have access to that search warrant. And you want to review what the court has allowed them to seize. What rooms they're allowed to search or what areas and what they're allowed to seize. So that way if the court allowed them to go to, Muhammad's apartment, into his bedroom, in his closet, that's the scope. They can't just be going into, his pantry or, through his living room closet fishing around for stuff. So remember, if they do have a search warrant, you look at it and make sure what the judge has allowed for them to, where they're allowed to look and what they're allowed to seize. The other way the law enforcement, they gather intelligence or they keep tabs on Muslims is actually through local law enforcement. We saw what the NYPD did when they started spying on Muslims across the greater New York area. Not just New York City, across all of New York, all the way down to Jersey. They used local law enforcement as a method to gather intelligence on the Muslims. That information gets sent back to fusion centers, gets sent back to other different federal law enforcement programs. It is very common if you're on some type of terror watch list, and anyone could fall on these lists, or you happen to be in a heavily Muslim populated area. You're parts of Astoria, Queens. You're in Dearborn, Michigan. They will, a lot of these guys are actually local law enforcement have direct connections with the FBI or DHS to keep tabs of the community and pass that information up. So it's very common to hear stories like you get pulled over and at Dearborn, Michigan, or somewhere in Astoria, Queens, they ask you, "Hey, what masjid do you go to? Do you practice?" What does that have to do with a traffic stop? And the reason they're asking this is that there's a specific mission within these various local law enforcement agencies to gather that data and pass it up north to fusion centers or to the FBI. So you get pulled over by the cops. Anyone who drives or been a passenger, this is going to happen at least once in your lifetime. A normal traffic stop goes, "Sir, can I ask for, license registration?" You give it, they come back, here's a citation or warning, and you're good to go. If you're Muslim these days, it's a little bit different now. You get pulled over. "Sir, can you step out the vehicle?" "Why'd you pull me over?" You're doing 54 and a 55. Some ridiculous reason you get pulled over. Okay, legally you have to get out the vehicle. "Can we search your car?" "I got pulled over doing 54 and a 55. Why do you want to search my car? They have no probable cause. This is very common. Sir, you know, we can make it easy if you just let us search your car. Or what's your phone number? Do you have kids? Are you married? Do you attend some type of mosque? Are you practicing Muslim? What do these questions have to do with the traffic stop? Those are red flags right away. So the moment they ask you, can we search your car? Remember this line: I do not consent to a search. This line is the moment law enforcement hears this, and I've used this multiple times. That you can see their eyes open up. Whoa, we need to be careful. You may ask yourself, okay, I got nothing to hide. Let me just let them search my car. It would be quicker. Remember, if you consent to a search, anything that happens in the search, let's say, you're delivering something on, you're delivering work equipment. The state trooper opens up the trunk, drops some expensive equipment, breaks it. Guess who's liable? Not him, you, because you consent to the search. Or, we've heard cases before. I just bought a used car. The previous owner, you don't know what he has in the car or something hidden there. They find that, guess what? You're held responsible. And if you're, and this is a constitutional right under the Fourth Amendment. So never consent to a search. If they ask, if they're going to ask you, say, I don't consent to a search. And you see the moment you say it, they get irritated. And they'll pull you up and say, they could pat you down. If they come up, they take you out the car, they could pat you down for weapons or, typically weapons. The moment they start talking, another one. Are you detaining me or am I free to go? You have to figure out what your legal status is at that point. Are you a detained citizen? Are you a detained individual of society? Or is it just a friendly officer questioning you? So this right there tells the police officer that, okay, I now have to figure out if I'm just going to question him for absolutely no reason, and he's not detained, I have to let him go. If not, I have to detain him. So these two things will save you a lot. Sir, can I search your vehicle? No, I do not consent to a search. They start asking random questions. Am I being detained or am I free to go? If something were to happen, and these, especially with the amount of stupid incidents law enforcement have been doing in the past couple of years with the shootings, tasing, they all wear body cameras or have some type of audio tied in. It's going to be, if this ever goes to court and they violated your right, it's very difficult for them to go any further. And we've heard multiple cases where even people that are actually transporting, trafficking narcotics, when they use I don't consent to a search and they start searching your car, the whole case was thrown out. Obviously, we're not in the business of transporting narcotics, but it tells you that there's certain elements within the Constitution that protect you from these specific type of incidents. Now, remember, law enforcement, they lie. They're allowed to lie. This is fair game for them. They will make you, they will make your encounter as, it's not going to be a pleasant encounter. They're going to put as much pressure. You may get the good cop, bad cop. They may drag you for 40, 50 minutes. But their true intent is to gather as much intelligence as they can to pass it on to the next level. A few months ago, we had a encounter in New Jersey where we were following the speed limit, get pulled over by one of the local law enforcement police agencies authorities out there. And first thing he asks is, I want to search your vehicle. Can I search your vehicle? Immediate response was, I don't consent to a search. And he got pissed off. I need you guys to step out the vehicle. So we stepped out the vehicle. Make some bogus story about how the VIN numbers didn't match, this and that. I'm like, all right, that's completely outside my authority. Let them figure this out. Then that traffic stop, became, where do you work? What do you do? How old are you? Where do you go to school? Where do you do this? Where do you do that? Do you practice? Do this? My VIN numbers don't match up. What does this have to do with any of this type of questioning? Sir, am I being detained or am I free to go? They give you that look. Like, come on, man, we're just talking. Am I being detained or am I free to go? Am I being detained or am I free to go? Repetitive. You're being detained. All right. There's Fifth Amendment. You don't self-incriminate yourself. Don't say anything without what? A lawyer being present. Without the presence of a lawyer. These issues, when you stressed it out, I'm not going to talk to you unless it's pertaining to my traffic stop. If it's pertaining to the VIN, like, hey, here's my registration. It says this VIN registers to this specific vehicle in the state of Virginia, Maryland, D.C., whatever it be. So then they're like, oh, we're going to call the canine. Canine comes. Remember I said cops law enforcement are allowed to lie? Me and my buddy, we watched the canine come out, sniff the entire car with the canine officer, and the officer's like, nothing. We clearly saw him. Then they huddle and discuss. The lead police officer comes and goes, hey, the dog barked when it was on the passenger side. And we're like, if this guy is a poker player, he sucks. And we're like, huh? We just saw the canine officer say, indicate there's nothing there. And he's like, look. And again, we had this is like 2 in the morning in the middle of pitch black New Jersey. Our phones are in the car. Our wallet, we have nothing. We're a bunch of like Bedouins in the middle of New Jersey. And again, if they seize the car, we can't take anything with us. Stuck to my guns. He's like, look. And he knew we had everything in there. He was like, look, this is your last chance. If not, you're going to have to walk like 4 miles and go to the place. We're going to get a warrant to search your car. I'm like, hey, I'm exercising my Fourth Amendment. Go get a warrant. He gets pissed off, comes back, like, sir, here's your license and registration. You're free to go. They lied. They lied the entire 1 hour process there. So, as much as you say, you should always, when we're young, we're given that notion that trust law enforcement. It's a complete 180. When you're actually being detained, do not trust them. Now, for the other issue that we see, and we talked about how the law enforcement, spirited by the FBI, how they come and they knock on your door to harass you or you get pulled over. The third thing we're seeing within the community is the pressure that's being put on masjids, imams, and Islamic groups. And we talked about this, that we, personally encounter, we talk to elements in the masjids that tell that the FBI come out there and they demand lists of people that attend the masjid, the programs that unite. Very specific, and these masjids comply. Why they comply, that's a complete, that's been talked in the previous discussions, but we have to remember that, whether you're Muslim, whether you come from the Arab world, the Indian subcontinent, it's really intelligence-driven government, where the intelligence apparatus keeps tabs of the masjids. This is the biggest threat for them. So they know this is the community. The community has that fear. The moment any type of law enforcement interacts with them, they start to, the biggest guy, he'll start to sweat and get nervous. And they leverage this. So the moment the FBI comes to a masjid in Springfield, Virginia, or somewhere Silver Spring, Maryland, the imam doesn't know what's going on, or the board. They sit there like, okay, what do you expect? When your board members are run, half the guys are like liquor store owners or sell khanzir in their store. What do you expect out of these people? They'll comply. So under no legal requirement, if you're a masjid, you're a Muslim student association, or any other Islamic group, are you required to give some type of database of who attends your event, who's registered in part of your organization? And a sincere advice to the leaders of the Muslim community that actually comply by these orders. If you fear the creation over the creator, you're doing the wrong job. It's not a hustle. And I remind you, and I remind ourselves, the first set of people to be thrown into Jahannam are the crooked scholars, this crooked imam. In Sahih Muslim, reported by Abu Hurairah, in regards to the crooked imam or the crooked scholar, Rasulullah said, regarding the people when the crooked imam or scholar when he's interacting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on Yawm al-Qiyamah, he goes, I acquired knowledge and taught it and read Quran for your sake. Allah will say to him, you have lied. You acquired knowledge so that people might call you a learned man, an alim, a scholar, imam. And you read the Quran so that you might be called a reciter, a qari. Oh, such a beautiful voice. And they have done so. Command will then be issued about him, and he'll be dragged on his face and thrown into hell, thrown into Jahannam. This deen is not a hustle. You fear the Creator, not the creation. The book of Quran al-Hakim consists of ayat, surahs after surahs talking about Bani Israel. Why? It's a reflection on us to go back and make sure that we don't end up like them. We sell out our deen for what? Pennies. This deen is not cheap. This deen is worth more than this whole world combined given to me. And if you really sit there and you're imam or you're leader of some masjid and you're willing to sell out your deen for a few pennies, for a few bucks, or just get media coverage, stand behind the red, white, and blue flag, get another hustle. This is not a joke. And we within the Muslim, we amongst the community need to hold them accountable. Just like how these guys, again, they're all nonprofits. They're transparent with their financials. They should be transparent with their congregation, with the Muslims. Say, hey, the FBI are coming out here sniffing around, trying to keep tabs on us, the community. They don't do that. They should. Just how they're held accountable for transparency from a financial standpoint, the moment law enforcement comes there and starts to sniff around, they should be out there telling their congregation. Honestly, would any rabbi accept this type of crap to be done at his temple? Would any pastor allow this type of crap to be done at his church? Absolutely not. Yet we see the imams and boards come out here, tremble on their knees and are willing to, give up the Muslims for God knows what reason. And again, it's a shame to say, but this is reality. A lot of these board members, these imams, if you go back, why did they get, in order for anyone to blackmail you, and that's what the law enforcement does, they need leverage. You can't get a rat, you can't get an informant without leverage. Go do such and such and we'll forget about your felony, or we won't prosecute you there, or we won't disclose your pornography addiction. We won't disclose about your tax fraud. We won't disclose about your beating up your wife. We're human they're all humans at the end of the day. And inshallah, as we conclude, we need to make sure that we spread the word and educate the community. This is the biggest reason why law enforcement is allowed to come in and pretty much manhandle the community, Muslim community in America, because we're ignorant. And unfortunately, the Masajid are almost they're open collaborators because they don't even educate this within the Muslims. And we need to hold collaborators accountable. We know for a fact, we've seen groups like MPAC at a national level, Make Space, Adams Center within the DC area, come out there openly and joyously talk about their collaboration with law enforcement. The same law enforcement that has been discussed in the previous talks about their conniving methods to entrap young Muslims. To end, I'll tell a quick story about Majid, who used to be the former president of ISNA and currently the leader of the head imam of Adams Center. Around 2010, there was an FBI entrapment program that took a individual from the Herndon area, and he was a member of the Adams community. And the moment he was arrested, the Adams Center sent out press releases praising the FBI for their courageous work of entrapping a Muslim. So I went to Mr. Imam Majid, and I went to him like, If you're such a proud American, you understand the concept of due process. You're innocent till you're proven guilty. How in the world are you going out there, you know, pretty much straightforward saying, "Hey, through official press releases, here's guilty man. He's guilty. And let's make sure he gets the wrath of the justice system without it ever going through trial. The trial didn't even begin. They're still going through search warrants. Looking at the guy's house. And here's a guy who's awarded by the FBI. He comes up and he's pissed and he goes, these FBI guys, they'll do any sleazy thing to make sure they get on top, to make sure they'll lie, they'll deceive our community to make sure that they could get a raise, they could get a boost a GS level, a step level, whatever it may be. Here's the leader of ISNA and the Muslims of the Adam Center community openly talking about how the FBI lies and deceives people for their advantage. And he's openly out there getting awards by the Department of Justice for his collaboration with the FBI. I mean, these are people that need to be held accounted. It's us that needs, us, not the people in this group, in this meeting, in this room. It's all of us that need to make sure these type of people and these groups are held accountable. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Anything I said that was good came from Allah. Any mistake that was done came from me. Assalamu alaikum.